Greetings, spiritual pilgrims. I am going to read the Genesis 4 sermon manuscript dramatically in order to make up for the gap in our lessons. The original sermon was lost, and that was my fault, and so I hope that this will be a good enough placeholder for what was there. I did it with God. Relationship or tool is the name of this sermon. It is in Genesis 4. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man," or Hebrew, I have brought forth a man with God. Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel, which means breath on a cold wind, kept flocks, and Cain, which means to acquire, worked the soil. Cain is tied to the earth in an intimate way. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions, from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the face of the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden, the land of wanderings. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play stringed instruments and pipes. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, "Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. Well, it's mysteries upon mysteries, the chapter of sevens. The 7th son of a 7th son under a 7th sign. 7, perfection, but always vague, for one can speak of the perfection of good as well as the perfection of evil. Perfection just is. It is the target which defines the good or evilness of the thing which is perfected. A perfect day, or a perfect nightmare. Perfection is also in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? The perfection of Bach is much more preferable and desirable to me than the perfection of a band like Nine Inch Nails. Sevenfold vengeance, to be carried down through sevenfold generations. 14, the number of souls mentioned from Adam to Lamech. And inversion, a triangle. Or simply two sets of 7-step staircases reaching doubled perfection of order or chaos. 7 times the name of Abel invoked. 7 times the word brother intoned. 7 times the word name is used. Something perfect is going on in this chapter. But what is it? Perfect harmony, or is it perfect discord? Or in some strange way are we to see that our God, no matter what, acts perfectly, no matter how perfectly we fail? What a grand and wonderful story, full of the pathos of all mysteries and horrors. This is the grand who done it. Where are they? And who is watching the watchers? Family, intrigue, fratricide, and the mother of all Pink Floyd mothers. What exactly is God doing here? Is this an example of good parenting? Or should we join the rebellion and admit that this looks like child abuse of the highest order and deserves to be rebelled against by fallen angels, Promethean rebels, and any caring and thinking individual that first abuses this story? If the first 3 chapters didn't have you raising your eyebrows at God, then you aren't paying attention. Something stinks. And it stinks to high heaven. And one way of looking at it demands that we get a watcher to watch the watcher, or to put it simply, God at times seems to hide in a cloud of incompetence, doesn't he? And then calls it mystery? Or, and this is of course a very big or, that requires that we humble ourselves and throw off about 50 years of the enemy making the devil, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Hillary Clinton, who as far as I know isn't running for office so I can say what I wish about her from the pulpit, look like heroes instead of villains. I hope you aren't upset with me, but I had to know. I just had to know. I told you, if Johnny has a weakness, he is willing to confess it openly, and it is this. Curiosity has killed this cat about 7 or 8 times. So we are almost at payday for me. I had to know what a show on Netflix called Lucifer could possibly be about. And you know what? I found that I liked the guy. He was crude and he was obnoxious, but he had that endearing quality of a person who has overcome horrible parental abuses in their adult age. He was overachieving, but he could be forgiven for that because of what Mommy and Daddy had put him through. He was trying to do the right thing. He just needed to be shown how to do it rightly. It was strange. By the time the first season had finished, I found myself doing as the Rolling Stones had begged a generation before to do at their beggar's banquet. Please, have sympathy for the devil. He only meant to bring you fire and knowledge. He only meant to set you free. He only meant to unshackle you from a tyrant father and set you free as gods yourselves. And that is the lie that is being told, the New Age lie that is being told, and in some Christian quarters, the lie that is being told. And seeing as most people in America and Europe get their theology from their entertainments instead of from the church, the lie of the sympathetic devil is contagious. For in Gnosticism and in Satanism and Luciferianism, I believe in Masonry, according to Albert Pike, all find out one day that all of their beliefs make a demiurge out of God and a God out of the demiurge. Or to put it simply, they make Satan, Saturn, and Apollo the true God, while making Yahweh the trickster God who should be shunned and contained. Is that too deep for this chapter? I don't think so. For how we think of God and how we think of how God thinks of us is the crucial point of this chapter, of this story. Because as with every other story in this book, you can read it through a broken lens, lens 1, or a fixed lens, lens 2. You can allow the very devil who misquoted God in order to have you create the first lie, convince you that the first lie was the foundational truth. Or you can admit that everything you are, everything you built, and everything you have accomplished was built on a false foundation and is worthless and needs to die, as reflects the false self you have built on sin, and find your true self in knowing the true God who walks with you in the garden of paradise. Because Eve and Cain do something very, very, very stupid. And they do it because they missed the mark when they lied to adopt the serpent's point of view for their own ego desires. But we will see how quickly and how heart-rendingly infectious the disease of sin is, and how quickly it literally brings the earth to, in 6 short chapters, its first moral and ethical and righteous rebooting. I'm on page 3 of my manuscript, and I haven't even touched the surface, so let me tell you a story, and I lean heavily on both Sarna and Rabbi Foreman, for my thoughts in this area. So while I am embellishing with my own twisted sense of narrative, the thoughts are theirs, and I sit at their knees and at their feet in eager expectation of more of their teachings. So let's look at what this story is. In a way, it is a sitcom, although we might call it a sit-trage. The scene opens up in the delivery womb, in the delivery room and the delivery womb, with the first woman and the first child. The first woman, Isha or Eve, looks around for her husband, and when she catches his eye, she says this, and don't get all dreamy-eyed and sentimental, because what she says can be taken sweetly or it can be taken as something else altogether. Adam comes over to the bed and wipes his wife's forehead. There's blood and sweat and afterbirth decorating the scene. And remember, this is a scene of firsts. The earth has witnessed something new, both beautiful and horrifying. The screams of a human mother in childbirth. It is agony. It is relief. It is expectation. What is coming? All that has passed now into sweet presence of birth. The presence of something new and the presence of something wonderful. A source of pride for Eve. A pride that is now tragically set loose in a world of good and evil, fret and forethought, manna today, but what of tomorrow? And she looks at her husband and says, "Look what I made with God." I don't have time to get into all the Hebrew words, but the word used for with here is the same as that used with a tool, not with a person. You see, I co-pastored with my mom, and anyone with any sense knew at the time that I might have co-pastored with Mom, and she might have co-pastored with me, but both of our withs were very different withs. My with would be as a subordinate who was grateful to be in the care and mentoring of an exceptional woman who had proven that she not only walked with God, but she also had incredible business sense. Me, I have no business sense. And so I co-pastored with Mom, and it was me who was in need. Now, I might years later forget how things actually were, and maybe my ego has clouded my memory. I could tell people, oh yes, I pastored with my mother. You know, she just was needing help those last years of her ministry, and I was on the road to ordination, so why not help her? I helped her when she was heading towards retirement, and I am sure I was quite the blessing. So you see, my pastoring with Mom could be a mighty compliment, or it could be a mighty misunderstanding on my part, and a mighty misunderstanding of my place, my skills, and my reality. I might be with somebody, but it doesn't mean I'm pulling my load. Okay, so now we have lens 1 and 2 for Eve's declaration. But it was more than a declaration for Cain. For Cain is not named. Cain comes out. Cain is. Cain is Cain. Cain is his being and his name. Names being given to people because of how they act, or you could get your Christian name way back when you had a life conversion as huge as which God you worshiped, like Paul did on the road to Damascus. He changed his name to his Christian name, because no matter what New Agers tell you, not all gods are the same. And who you choose dictates everything about you. You cannot divorce your politics from your religion. That is foolish, or just another way of saying, I have a political point of view, and my religious point of view isn't convincing enough even to me to change my political view. I like hedging my bets. God for church, socialism for my safety blanket. So let's get all caught up. Even made Cain the land acquirer or real estate with God. And Cain is the father of sacrifice. Cain is a genius. For every other religion in all the world, no matter how the devil was able to pervert the original story, uses or used sacrifice as an integral part of their worship. And this is where the story tells us why God is not pleased with 1,000 bulls or 1,000,000 sheep. He requires them, yes, and yet he does not need them or want them. What in the world is going on? Cain, the first murderer, not just the first murderer, but the first family murderer. Cain, the land acquirer, Cain, the landowner, brings to God the first sacrifice on historical record. But it is ephemeral. It is his little brother, his breath in the wind that we know so little about, that brings the true first fruits. You see, Cain, while he might have been the first to create sacrifice, was also the first person to create insurance. Abel was the first person to bring sacrifice, but a different kind. It was a sacrifice of praise, and these are very easy to make out, even if at first it isn't clear how they differ. I make a sacrifice each month to provide a roof over my head. According to the legal document, I will make this sacrifice over the course of 30 years. Now, I promise you this. Once those 30 years are over, I will discontinue my sacrifice and I will live off of that fat. Or, let's get even more ephemeral. I sacrifice something like $50 a month on home shield type insurance. I sacrifice this amount each month knowing that one day the air conditioning unit is going to die. It might die after I have put in $100. It might die after I put in $500,000. Either I or the insurer will benefit from this arrangement. But I also am sacrificing $50 a month for peace of mind, so I get something in return. Each month I know if it goes, it's taken care of. I don't have to have $10,000 readily available when catastrophe strikes. So I am buying something. Insurance. So we meet in the middle, and it's called a win-win. If they get the most money out of the deal, I still get something that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Peace of mind, guaranteed air conditioning. But there is a better sacrifice. A sacrifice that all lonely wives want out of their husbands, and all parents want out of their children, and the God of the universe wants out of you. You see, people who don't like God like to say that Cain and Abel came up to Daddy with drawings that they had made. Abel was an artist, and Cain, well, he just wasn't an artist, you know. But it was Cain's idea to bring the pictures as a present in the first place. Cain also happened to have his eye on a nice new bicycle in the Sears catalog, and, you know, Christmas was around the corner. He figured if he kept Dad sugared up, then Dad would most certainly be more inclined to think of him when Christmas arrived. Insurance. Abel, however, heard what his brother was planning, and his heart leapt for joy. For Daddy had provided the sunshine, the rain, the house, the clothing, the food on the table, and seemed to be intimately still involved in the rebel family's fledgling lives outside of paradise. Cain came with two stick figures standing next to each other with a caption that read, "Cain loves Daddy." He made it in about 2 minutes with some papyrus and chalk. Abel, though, completely innocent and not even watching Cain, goes out and squeezes the flowers for color. He smears grass on the page for green. He finds morning glory for purple. And while the picture definitely wouldn't be hung in the cathedrals of Rome, they might still make a proud showing above Daddy's desk at work. Who knows? Who cares? This is about Daddy and how much we love Daddy. And these aren't little guys we're talking about. We don't know their true ages right now in the story, but the story does lend itself to the idea that they were not toddlers. Let us imagine them for our purposes as young, older teenagers, or even young men. Men whose eyes give themselves away when caught in truth. And God gets his thing from Cain and says, "Thank you, Cain, very nice." And then Abel runs up with a childhood masterpiece of love, first fruits bruised with a child's excited hands to Daddy, grinning ear to ear just to watch Daddy light up at this labor of love. And when Cain detected the difference between the two composures of Daddy, and really look at the story, God didn't throw what Cain had made in the garbage. He just received it in the spirit it was given. Insurance. You want insurance? You get an insurance dealer. And you need insurance dealers. You want Daddy? Well, then come and join in the Father's joy freely. A joy of giving without expectation and of receiving with the joy of daily bread. A joy that gives the daily morning glory to both sin and sinner alike. A Father who gives both saint and sinners rain and sunshine. A Father who opens the flowers each morning for us simply because he made us and he loves us. And Eve says, "Look what I made with God." And Cain said, "Look how good I am in with the boss." And Abel said, "I love you, Daddy, with all my heart." That's the difference. You see, when you go looking for a gift for someone, necessity belittles the gift. If they need it, it belittles the gift in some way. God needs nothing. So to suppose that you can in any way influence him through works or gifts is completely ridiculous. God wants what all good parents want: living, breathing, real children who can enjoy the gifts that are given them and be able to give good gifts in return. When you really tap into and accept what God is willing to just give you, when you can stop struggling, stop trying to do it with God, the tool, and start doing it with God, the Father, something miraculous happens in your life. And I'm on page 5 and I haven't even gotten to the mark. God loves Cain so much that he marks him so that others will not come and take justice into their own hands. Justice, wrath, and vengeance, eye for an eye, are God's. And if God decides either in the pre-Christ blood era to go gently on Cain, then we should rejoice. For surely that grace flows out more to us after Christ, doesn't it? But even more so, us living in the time when Daddy sent our brother, not to kill us tenants of the land, but to allow us once again to kill our good brother and witness the earth and the mountains stand against us. But also in that moment to receive a new mark, a mark of forgiveness and an invitation to stand alongside the host of seventh heaven. Forgive 7 times and 7 times 7 times. 7 days and 7 elders. There is perfection in this story. It's seeded through it. Perfect failure and perfect grace and perfect love. You decide how you want to live with God.
But know this, loving God rightly might mean that one day to wake up everyone up, to shake the earth so dramatically that lies are revealed and truth is made center stage. Every now and then, the child that embraces daddy the most is also the child that is nailed to a tree and whose blood flows down into the earth once again, so that the Son of Man might hear the outcry of the earth and endeavor to draw our hearts back to paradise once again and bring the Father's heart back to the children. At first glance, a child who is murdered, whose name means breath on the wind, might seem unbearably sad. But if you will quiet your mind and listen, you will still hear the breath that was breathed over man to give him life. The breath over the waters that divided the chaos. The breath of Abel's life that was so short but such a beautiful sacrifice, so that we might all learn to be like him when we approach Daddy, like children with our pictures, not to buy favor, but because we are favored. That breath is still blowing, and no one knows from where it comes or to where it goes, but it is undeniable. It is a breath that still gives life, even if the foolish believe that it just evaporates into the wind. We all know that somewhere, in some time, that small breath has worked itself into a whirlwind of light and dark. Oh, Daddy, you are incredible. Godspeed.